Hello. Please join me as I share some insights that my younger selves hadn't been able to see. Then you can tell me, is this wisdom or is it the illusion of wisdom? This winter has seen bitter cold and large amounts of snow over much of North America. So this might be a good time to share what this old northerner has learned about winter driving over the years. This video may be of special interest to those of you who live in places where excessive snow or cold are unusual, where your municipality isn't that great at snow removal, and or where you and your neighbors may not have had much opportunity to practice winter driving. I'll assume that the authorities in your area have already made you aware of some basic survival tips, such as always having cold weather gear in your vehicle, making sure your windows are clear, and that sort of thing. Instead, this video will be about the actual mechanics of safely handling your vehicle on ice and snow. Just one other disclaimer before we start. This series is based on my own experience, and nearly all of my driving experience has been in cars and small trucks. So I won't talk about handling motorcycles, big rigs, or trailers of any sort because I don't have winter driving experience with those. As well, I don't have a lot of experience with four-wheel drive vehicles, except to say that one time I drove a few hundred miles in a RAV4 on highways that were sheer ice, and I was amazed at how much control its four-wheel drive offered. Okay, now we can get started. This may surprise some of you who live in warmer climes, but vehicles around here all come equipped with block heaters. These are heaters built right into the engine that plug into your normal 110-volt household electrical supply and heat up the engine before you try to start it. If your vehicle has a block heater, it's important that you use it, especially when the temperature is at or below minus 20 Celsius. That's around 0 Fahrenheit. The only temperatures that count here, by the way, are the actual temperatures. Your vehicle doesn't care about wind chill. Be aware that block heaters are very power hungry, so you don't want to leave them plugged in longer than you have to. Experts disagree on how long, but I've heard opinions ranging from half an hour to 4 hours. My own experience has been that about 90 minutes is sufficient for my little Honda at minus 30 Celsius or about 22 below Fahrenheit. What I'm doing here is I'm putting my ear to the hood to listen for the fluid to start bubbling up a little bit, kind of like you hear a pot on the stove start to steam a little bit. That way I know that my plug-in has made good contact and the heater is actually working. So, to know how long to plug it in for, here's a suggestion. Listen to how much the starter labors when it's starting the car. If it's cranking significantly slower than normal, you may have to plug your vehicle in longer. There are a couple of reasons to use the block heater. First, of course, is to make sure your vehicle will actually start. A cold engine is a much bigger load on your battery than a warm one. The second reason is more subtle, but more important in the long run. At very low temperatures, oil becomes more viscous than normal. That is to say, it doesn't flow as readily. So, for the first few seconds or minutes after you start an engine that's very cold, the oil may not reach all the places it needs to, creating excessive wear and tear on the engine. For the same reason, it's wise to let the vehicle warm up for a few minutes before you drive it. But be sure that either you're in the vehicle or have a way to keep it locked while it's warming up, so nobody makes off with it while your back is turned. Yet another reason why I love my car's remote starter. Let's talk now about driving on slippery roads. The most important basic rule is the same one that you might use with an inexperienced lover. Be gentle. Or what a criminal might say to you, don't make any sudden moves. Well, okay, that's a little corny, but true. The name of the game is to keep your tires revolving at the same speed you're driving. A sudden application of the brakes will get them sliding, while an attempt at fast acceleration will often get them spinning. When your front wheels are sliding, you can't steer. When your drive wheels are spinning, there's a good chance of putting your car into a skid. Okay, let's go through this step by step. We start out by gradually applying power to get the vehicle moving, especially when you're pulling into traffic. It's important to keep in mind that on an icy or snowy surface, you have much less traction than normal, so it will take you considerably longer to get up to speed. As a result, you need to allow yourself much more room to accelerate. Once you get going, it's a good idea to test the amount of traction you do have by using the brakes. Be careful, though. Before you try this, make sure there's plenty of space behind you. Then, if the traction is more than you thought it was, you can prevent rear-end collision. I don't recommend you doing what I'm about to do unless you have considerable winter driving experience, but here I've jammed the brakes on full. What happened in this instance is that the car barely slowed down, ABS notwithstanding. Message: this road is very slippery and I need to drive accordingly. If you're not an experienced winter driver, I suggest that what you do instead is to apply the brakes gently and be prepared to take your foot off the pedal the moment your vehicle starts to head in an unexpected direction. Remember, if your front wheels aren't turning, you can't steer. So how do you stop then? Well, first, by starting to stop much earlier than you might on dry pavement, and then repeatedly applying the brakes gently, also called pumping the brakes. It's a good idea also when you're in traffic to stop further behind the vehicle in front of you than you normally would. That way, if the driver behind you hasn't seen this video, and you keep an eye on your rearview mirrors, if you see a vehicle sliding into you from behind, you might just be able to pull ahead enough to give that driver the extra room to get stopped safely. All else being equal, when driving on slippery roads, I suggest driving slower than you normally do, because almost everything you do is either going to require more room than normal and/or has a chance of creating unpredictable results, such as going into a skid when rounding a corner. So let's talk about skids. First, let's take a look at that proverbial ounce of prevention. One obvious one: go slow. Duh. Other techniques depend on whether your vehicle is powered by the front wheels or the back. When I first started driving front-wheel drive cars, I had to learn slippery road techniques all over again. What if you start to feel your vehicle sliding as you round a corner? What can you do? If your vehicle is rear-wheel drive, your best bet is to stay away from the brake and let off in the acceleration. The drag from the rear will tend to straighten your vehicle out. If you then apply a little bit of acceleration, it can push the back end to the outside of the turn and help bring your vehicle around the corner. Just a bit though, or you may end up spinning out. If your vehicle is front-wheel drive, sometimes gently adding a little more acceleration will pull the front end around the corner. If you overdo this, you'll find the front end refusing to turn. In that case, let off the gas until you get steering control back. If there's room, steer straight ahead while gently pumping the brakes. If there isn't room, let the vehicle coast while you steer as minimally as you can in the direction you want to go. When you get control back, then gently pump the brakes. But what if you suddenly find yourself in a full-fledged skid? Now what? Remember that first rule: be gentle. Don't panic. The worst thing you can do is jam on the brakes. The first thing to do in any skid is to back off in the accelerator and stay off the brakes. In other words, let the vehicle coast. If you're in what's called an oversteer skid, where the back of your vehicle is sliding, gently steer in the direction that the back end is trying to go, usually to the outside of the turn. If you're in an understeer skid, where the front end is refusing to turn, back off on the accelerator and let the vehicle coast while steering straight ahead until you get control back. Then gently pump the brakes, while also gently turning the wheels in the direction you want to go. Now let's talk about hills. Here's another duh: avoid them. To get home from downtown, I have to climb out of the river valley. Fortunately, there are 3 parallel roads I can use that aren't too far apart. These 2 are fairly steep. When it's really slippery, I avoid them altogether, in favor of this one. But today, things are only moderately slippery, at least by Canadian standards, so I'm using the shortest route up this hill. I start by taking a run at it, making sure I have good speed by the time I reach the hill. Fortunately, the speed limit is higher here than on the others. These ruts look like they should offer good traction, but they don't. They're slippery. So to ensure that I have good traction, I drive on the snow-covered part of the road. That gives the tires something to get their teeth into, as it were, and gets me up the hill. Coming down a hill in slippery conditions can be quite hazardous. Here are some thoughts on how to stay safe descending a slippery hill. First, same rule as going up. If at all possible, don't go there. But if you have no other choice, here are some ideas to keep you out of the ditch. Normally on dry pavement, I let the engine braking take care of most of holding back my speed going down a hill. That saves a lot of wear and tear on the brakes. But if your vehicle is front-wheel drive, that's not the best idea for a slippery hill. You're trying to hold back the front of your vehicle while the back end wants to keep on going. Here's the key. Engine braking often effectively works on only one wheel, while your regular brakes work on all 4. So your best bet for controlling your descent of an icy hill is to use the regular brakes, but use them gently. Pump them. Well, I hope this has helped you deal with bitter winter weather and has helped to keep you safe and out of the ditch. If I've said anything that you think is wrong, please let me know in the comments. As well, if this has helped you in some way, please let us know that as well. If you'd like to help us keep producing videos like this and for our other series, please take a look at my Patreon page. Thank you for watching and safe winter driving. See you next time.